A case that is dividing the nation. A labour and delivery nurse in a happy marriage with 3 kids has their lives changed forever after a series of unfortunate events. Lindsay Clancy experienced some anxiety after the birth of her 3rd child, which severely progressed over the next few months and ended with the most horrific act you can imagine. When her husband popped out to get the family some dinner, he returned home to a deafening silence. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Partners in Crime. My name is Poppy.
And I'm Roger.
And I'm here to tell you today about a true crime case that you might not have heard of. And Roger certainly hasn't. Roger's here as a real-time listener, giving his honest opinion and reaction as we go through the case.
Correct.
So trigger warning, suicide, mental health, but more specifically, postpartum psychosis, and children being killed, basically. I didn't know how to write that in a better way. But that's all I can think of, and they are the serious ones, so apologies if I have missed any. If you think any of these things will trigger you, please just don't watch this video. Just go and look after yourself. It's not worth it. So, yeah. Let's get into it.
Yes, let's.
Yeah.
Let's.
This is a particularly heavy case today, about a very tragic current case that happened earlier this year. It will create a lot of discussion here, a lot of opinion and confusion. I think that's kind of the general thoughts that I've had, and it's just horrible and sad. So please let us know what you think in the comments as well, because I'm sure a lot of you will have things to say. This is a case that has divided the nation as well, and you'll see why. So let's start. Lindsay and Patrick Clancy live in Duxbury, Massachusetts in the USA. Patrick, who is 34, works at Microsoft as a sales executive, and Lindsay, who is 32, works as a labour and delivery registered nurse.
Okay.
They got married in 2013 after a long relationship and have 3 children together. The first child is called Cora, who is 5. Second child is Dawson, who is 3. And their third child called Callan, who is 8 months.
Callum?
Callan.
What was the first kid's name?
Cora.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Unfortunately, it was when their third child was born that all their problems and the tragedy of today's case starts to unravel.
Okay.
So let's go back in time a bit. On the 26th of May, 2022, Callan Clancy was born. Lindsay had 2 healthy births previously to Callan, and whilst his birth went well in general, Lindsay started experiencing a lot of anxiety postpartum. She wrote on Facebook about these new feelings she was experiencing, but was going to try staying as healthy as possible, focusing on exercise, nutrition, and her mindset in order to hopefully get past this feeling. Due to her busy job as a labour and delivery nurse, she was starting to worry about returning to work and juggling 3 kids, which I'm sure is a natural thing to worry about, but the anxiety kept growing and she developed feelings of depression towards the end of September, as she was nearing the end of her maternity leave.
Mm.
So she decided to go see a couple of psychiatrists and is diagnosed with generalised anxiety disorder, which is a long-term condition that causes you to feel anxious about multiple situations and issues, not just one specific thing, and you feel anxious most days. Symptoms include feeling on edge, fatigued, difficulty concentrating, and sleep disturbance. Okay. One psychiatrist prescribed her with sertraline, which is an antidepressant.
Mm-hmm.
And another psychiatrist prescribed multiple medications over a period of 4 months. These included trazodone, zolpidem, clonazepam, diazepam, fluoxetine, lamotrigine, lorazepam, mirtazapine, quetiapine, hydroxyzine, amitriptyline, and buspirone.
What a cocktail.
Yes,
That's
so
quite a lot of drugs.
a whole bucket load of medications.
Well, I'm also amazed that you can say all of those, but you question saying Clancy.
Well, I used to work in a pharmacy, so
Yes, that you did.
I dealt with these medications daily. So these were for her anxiety, depression, and insomnia.
Right.
The professionals indicated she would be able to sleep, she would be able to feel, and she would be able to emote once the medications kicked in.
Okay.
Also, I'm not sure what combinations she was on at any time, because she obviously wasn't on all of them at once, because she would overdose and.
Right.
But she was never on more than 5 medications at once, which seems like too many to me.
Even still, yeah.
Anyway, but I'm not a doctor, but we'll get more into that later in the story.
Okay.
But yeah, a bucket load.
So she was bouncing between these different meds then, technically.
Yeah. We will go more into that side of things, but that was just the whole list of all the medications
That
she was prescribed.
Taken. Yeah. Okay.
Over 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah. Lindsay is described as a logical person who made meticulous diary entries about the difficulties she was having with each of the medications. And when she was having issues, the doctor would stop them or wean her off and try a new medication. She was clearly having difficulties with the combinations she was on and having to often evaluate and change them. But it seems like she was fairly on top of this with her constant note-taking and everything like that. But because they hadn't found the correct combination for her, I'm assuming she still wasn't feeling great weeks into taking these medications, still possibly feeling, somewhat anxious and depressed, as well as experiencing the side effects of these new medications she was taking, which can equally be intense.
Absolutely.
So she still isn't feeling great, and in December she was evaluated at the Women and Infants Hospital Centre for Women's Behavioural Health to explore whether something else was wrong with her mentally. She had just had a baby, so could it have been postpartum depression, for example? After evaluating her, they said she hasn't got PPD, postpartum depression, and is showing no signs of PPD whatsoever. So the medication combinations continued, looking for the right ones to help her. However, at the end of December, things took a turn for the worse. Lindsay admitted to her husband she was having suicidal thoughts and even thoughts of hurting her children, which must have been so hard to hear and even harder to admit as a mother. But thank God she did admit this, and she self-admits herself into the McLean Hospital in Belmont, Massachusetts, on January the 1st, 2023. And after 5 days, after speaking with professionals, she was released. Hospital officials said she was not a danger to herself or others upon discharge, so she could now go home.
Right.
Obviously, 5 days isn't that long. Patrick knew this, so once she was settled at home again, he asked whether she was still having these suicidal thoughts and thoughts of hurting the children. But thank God she said she wasn't. Patrick and Lindsay even went for a dinner at their friend's house, something they both haven't been able to do for a few months. On Sunday the 22nd of January, they went to an old college friend of Patrick's house. His name is Kyle Kearney, and also his wife and kids were there as well. Patrick also brought their 2 older kids, Cora and Dawson, as their kids all get along and go to the same school. Kyle describes the evening as seeming fairly normal. He was actually surprised that Lindsay came to the dinner, as he was aware of how much she had been struggling recently, and they hadn't seen her in months. But things seemed to be fine and perfectly normal. Lindsay was fairly quiet and stayed mostly looking on her phone. But the evening went better than expected, as Patrick had confided in Kyle that he believed Lindsay had been possibly going through a benzodiazepine withdrawal and was having the worst side effects possible, and how the medication she was prescribed wasn't working. Lindsay also saw her family that same weekend as well, and everything seemed fine. In fact, one of her better weekends she'd had in a while. However, just 48 hours later, everyone's lives would change forever. Tuesday the 24th of January started off normally. In the morning, Cora had a pre-arranged doctor's appointment, so Lindsay took her to that and Patrick was working in his home office in the basement. They returned home, and because it had snowed, Lindsay, Cora and Dawson all wanted to play in the snow, and Lindsay even sent some cute photos to her mum. Later in the afternoon, Lindsay messages Patrick asking whether he wanted to pick up a takeaway from a restaurant called 3V in Plymouth, which is about 13 minutes away from their house. She said she hadn't cooked and has had a long day. He said, yes, that's fine, and they discussed what they wanted to order, and then Lindsay rang up 3V and ordered it around 5:10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Lindsay remembered she needs some Pedialax, a children's laxative. I'm assuming for Cora, as she had a doctor's appointment earlier that day.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's what you would assume, yeah?
Yeah. She texted Patrick at 5:15 p.m. asking if he could pick up the medication from CVS in Kingston on his way to getting the takeaway. And he said, yep, that's fine, and leaves to run these errands. So to clarify timings, to get from home to CVS, then to 3V, then back to Summer Street in Duxbury, which is where they lived, it takes roughly about 30 minutes, plus the waiting times, etc., while at the destinations.
Plus the waiting time.
Yeah.
So probably more like 40 minutes. Or are you saying that's included in that 30 minutes?
It's not included, so it's
So the travel time alone is 30 minutes?
Yeah. The driving time is 30 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So there's additional time after that.
Yeah, okay.
Around 5:33 p.m, Patrick arrives at CVS to collect the medication. He tried to call Lindsay to confirm the medication he needed to pick up, even though she did send it in a message, but I guess he wanted to double check. She didn't pick up, but called him back a minute later. Patrick described her demeanour on the phone as if she was in the middle of something. It seemed a bit rushed. But he got the information he needed and moved on to 3V and collected the takeaway around 5:54 p.m. and then headed straight home. Patrick arrived home at 6:09 p.m, so less than an hour after he left.
Spot on to an hour, isn't it? Right.
He left at 5:15.
Yeah.
He arrived home at 6:09 p.m. to a very quiet house. In fact, that was the first thing he noticed. With 3 kids, home life is rarely ever quiet. But he couldn't find Lindsay or the kids anywhere. He's calling their names, but there isn't an answer. He looks around the house, goes up to their bedroom on the 2nd floor to see if they were hanging out in there and maybe they just hadn't heard. But the door was locked. He's starting to panic and he breaks down the door. First thing he sees is blood on the floor, a knife on the nightstand, and an open window in the bedroom. He rushes downstairs to the back garden and he sees his wife lying on the ground under the window. He immediately calls 911 at 6:11 p.m. He could clearly see she had cuts on her wrists and neck, which is where the blood must have come from, and obviously what the knife was used for. But the cuts had stopped bleeding by the time he was with her. Patrick speaks to the 911 operator to report Lindsay's attempted suicide. That's what he called it. During the call, you could hear Lindsay saying, "I tried to kill myself and jumped out the window." They immediately send over officers and paramedics to their house. Patrick stays on the 911 call until the first responders get there. And you can hear him ask Lindsay, "Where are the kids?" She replies, "In the basement."
Okay.
Still staying on the phone, Patrick goes to look for the kids in the basement. He's calling out their names but hears nothing. Suddenly the operator hears Patrick screaming in agony. There in the basement, he sees Cora and Callan lying on the floor of the basement in the den, and Dawson on the floor in Patrick's home office. They're not moving, and he's desperately begging for them to breathe. Officers arrived to the house and heard Patrick wailing in the basement and went running down there, and he yells, "She killed the kids."
Okay. God.
Lindsay was transported to South Shore Hospital in Weymouth. Due to the 20-foot fall, she suffered from lacerations on her neck and several broken bones, mostly some ribs, and in her back, several severe spinal fractures, including a spinal cord transection, which in fact has left her paralysed from the waist down. But it's hard to feel sorry for her right now after what she has allegedly done. Cora, Dawson and Callan were rushed to Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Plymouth. At 7:28 p.m, sweet innocent Cora and Dawson are pronounced dead at the hospital. But somehow 8-month-old Callan is clinging on to life and is later transported by medical flight to Boston Children's Hospital. At the same time, a Massachusetts State Police trooper arrives at Beth Israel Hospital to speak with doctors who treated the children to understand medically what happened to them. The next day, on the 25th of January, an arrest warrant was issued for Lindsay for 2 counts of homicide and 3 counts of strangulation, plus 3 counts of assault and battery with a deadly weapon. Lindsay was still in hospital when the warrant was issued, so she wasn't taken to jail or anything. Officers on the case obtained a search warrant for the Clancy home and combed through all their belongings and electronics. Sadly, on Friday the 27th of January at 18 minutes past 11 in the morning, little Callan Clancy succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced dead at Boston Children's Hospital. It was revealed that whilst the hospital team managed to get Callan's heart started again, he didn't have any brain activity, which is why he then died a few days later. So sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's tragic. It's very tragic.
It's just the worst thing that could ever happen, ever.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because you'd hear that, right? You'd get hope, wouldn't you? You'd have a lot of hope.
Yeah.
With the child getting transferred.
Yeah.
And then, like, I don't know. It'd be weird because they'd be physically alive, wouldn't they? But not
mentally.
There's no
activity.
Dead,
yeah. Because of Lindsay's past with mental health issues, and now that she has allegedly committed these horrific murders and tried to take her own life, her defense lawyer hired a psychologist called Dr. Paul Ziesel. Or Ziesel, not sure. Because this could possibly go to trial, and her lawyers need to know what is going on with her now, mentally, of course. Lindsay was allowed to call her husband from Dr. Ziesel's phone on the 6th of February, so this is a couple of weeks later.
Yeah.
They started talking about what happened that day. She tells Patrick that she heard voices and had a, quote, moment of psychosis, end quote, after he had left the house on the 24th of January. He asks her what voices she heard, and she replies that she heard a man's voice telling her to kill the kids and kill herself because it was her last chance. So is this moment of psychosis her saying she has, or she thinks she has, postpartum psychosis? Have you heard of that before?
No, not particularly.
Right.
But the lead up in terms of it wouldn't shock me that she does have something sort of going on if, she's seen all the doctors and things in the weeks before and months before and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, it's a rare and usually misdiagnosed severe mental illness. I'll go into more detail of postpartum psychosis as a whole later on in the story. On the 7th of February was Lindsay's arraignment. So this is when details were shared publicly about what happened that day, and the defendant is asked whether to plead guilty or not guilty. Lindsay appeared remotely via video camera as she was still in hospital. At Plymouth Court, District Court Judge John Canavan was at the arraignment along with prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Sprague, and defence lawyer Kevin Reddington, who made their arguments from the initial evidence about the case and their assessments so far. The main point of argument was about Lindsay's mental health and the medication she was prescribed, and whether this was why she murdered her children, or whether she was lucid and aware of what she was doing and killed them on purpose for whatever reason. Defence lawyer Kevin believes his client did this horrible act due to her mental illness, possible psychosis, and was definitely not planned. Quote, "This is not a situation, Your Honour, that was planned by any means. She's suicidal. She has been unable to express any happiness or sadness or cry." End quote. And of course, we know about her mental health history and her self-admitting into a hospital just a month earlier because she was feeling suicidal and expressed feelings of wanting to harm the children. Kevin details how many medications she had been taking in the months leading up to the incident and described her as a zombie due to her being, in his opinion, over-medicated. I've read that she was taking 3 medications at the time of the killings, but I'm not 100% sure which ones they were. That hasn't been released yet.
Right.
But all medications come with their own side effects, which we'll go into later as well. Kevin also asked the court to not enter an inhumane order that Lindsay be incarcerated, as he believes she really needs to stay in hospital to be further assessed. He plans to argue that Lindsay lacks any criminal responsibility due to her mental illness. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's like you can have no criminal responsibility for your mental because of a mental illness, right? And like, if you smashed some windows and stole some stuff from a shop, who would really care? But because it's resulted in the deaths of 3 children, it's really horrendous and sad and tragic,
Yeah. It's like, not, it doesn't mean though that she would then like go live her life.
No, of course not. No,
she would go into a hospital.
Yes, she'd go into a mental health facility.
X amount until they deem her better.
Yes, yeah.
So that could be...
And it could take 20 years. It
or
could take
longer.
a whole life. Yeah, no, exactly.
We don't know.
No, we don't. But
yeah, it's not obviously the same as...
Either way, yeah. No, you just like, I don't know. Because I see people will get funny because children have died, right?
100%.
People wouldn't get funny if someone stole some Nikes, right?
Nikes?
That's how the Americans want to. But people wouldn't get funny, would they, if you just stole something from a shop or anything like that?
Yeah,
like,
it's
really,
because it's children.
But because children.
And
yeah, and if
children.
it was an adult as well, I mean, I think similarly, it would get a similar amount, but maybe not as much because being children is.
It's just particularly horrible, isn't it?
More horrible, yeah.
Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Sprague believes Lindsay knew what she was doing and was receiving effective treatment for her mental illness, and therefore was sound of mind.
It wasn't very effective if she was having to get flipped between different pills, is it?
Well, there we go. Quote, "She planned these murders, gave herself the time and privacy needed to commit the murders, and then she strangled each child in the place where they should have felt the safest, at home with their mum." which is obviously a very powerful thing to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jennifer went on to express how Lindsay created the situation by using Google Maps to figure out the timings of how long she would have in order to commit the terrible act. And that is true in a sense of there were Google Maps searches of the distances and stuff. So that's true. Obviously, we just don't know why she searched them.
Yeah.
But her assumption is so she knew how long she had.
Why would you search them otherwise?
I don't know.
But
Could be something innocent. I don't know.
Well, potentially, yeah. But you still might not be sound of mind in doing a Google search, maybe. I don't know.
That seems quite sound of mind in a sense of like that's a pre-planning. It's like a premeditation almost, which is obviously what she's getting at.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's
confusing.
This is what this whole case. Literally, what we're going to be like the whole time. Like, because it's so difficult.
Yeah, it's so awkward because like if someone's having these kind of thoughts though, and I mean like I suppose more so about the suicidal thoughts, right? You will pre-plan that. You're not just going to take your life. But that's not a crime. I know it's not a crime, but what I'm saying is that she's already had these thoughts of killing the children. She's probably thought of ways around how she might do that in her psychosis, right?
I'm not sure. It's more if she has a psychosis or not. That's the point.
Sure.
That's the whole point of this.
Yeah.
Jennifer argues that Lindsay knew exactly what she was doing before, during, and after. Mm-hmm. Quote, on January 27th, using an erasable whiteboard, because she, Lindsay, was still temporarily intubated, one of the first questions that Lindsay Clancy asked was, do I need an attorney? She knew that she had murdered her children, and she had the clarity, focus, and mental acumen.
Yes.
Is that it? Mm-hmm. Okay. A mental acumen to focus on protecting her own rights and interests. End quote. Now, to me, that just sounded a bit suspicious. That was one of the first things that she asked.
Well, maybe in a way, but I think in 2023, you've said to me that if you got arrested, you wouldn't say anything and you would wait for a lawyer or ask for a lawyer. Yeah. And like, whether you've done something or not, I think it's almost, it sounds like I'm defending this person a lot, but
we're going to be going through this. Yeah. We're going to be going between both things.
Yeah, of course. But in 2023, I think most people, unless you're a bit naive, most people would want to ensure that they've got some kind of legal protection.
Oh, no, 100%. I think what the lawyer's point of saying that is also that she didn't show any initial remorse, sadness of what she had done. Okay. Because she was obviously showing that she had clarity to know to need an attorney, but she wasn't like upset of what she had done.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that was more her point.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. I mean, fine. Yeah.
But we don't have context of the conversation that she was having. Like we don't know. Did she just open her eyes and go, "Do I need an attorney?" or was there a conversation? Was it in context of a conversation she was having? We don't know. But that's obviously what the prosecutor's saying. Both sides called on expert testimony and had Lindsay's mental health evaluated. We've already discussed forensic psychologist Dr. Paul Ziesel's opinion. He suggests Lindsay was suffering from postpartum psychosis, or PPP. Plus, Lisa Cosgrove conceded that many doctors often give excessive amounts of medication to patients. Like she's said, that's normal. Whereas Dr. Nancy Byatt claimed that there's no evidence to suggest that using multiple medications increases the risk of tragic outcomes. Okay. Which is a very broad term, tragic outcomes, but Yeah. I actually didn't kind of look into that, like prescribed medication and then like murders. I don't know actually, because I don't think that, I think what she said is true, but it's because it's mental health medications, it's not like paracetamol and
No, of course.
ibuprofen. They just took like a shitload of that and then went and killed. That doesn't make
yeah,
any
no,
sense. I think
no.
it's because it's like mental health stuff.
Yeah.
She's just kind of generalizing it as like multiple medications. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah. Well, with all these things, you're adjusting your brain chemistry by taking these pills, and they take not a long time, but they take a few weeks to take proper effect. And if you don't,
Like mental health ones, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
like antidepressants and things like that, or antipsychosis, whatever. They take time to set, and if they don't work for you, they don't work for you, and you try something else. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Are there risks of coming off stuff like that and then going on something else? Quite quickly, one after the other. Maybe, I don't know. But
Well, we'll go into that a bit more. I do talk about that more, but
Yeah.
I just meant like she was kind of doing like a blanket statement of like
yeah,
multiple medications. It's like that's just, there's like a gajillion different medications.
Yeah,
like, so I just thought her statement was just nonsense and just pointless.
a little bit.
Was my point.
Okay.
Overall, a not guilty plea was made on behalf of Lindsay due to diminished responsibility because of her mental health and her alleged psychosis she experienced. She was held without bail and a probable cause appointment is set for May 2023. So on May the 2nd, at the next arraignment, it was revealed that Lindsay's doctors have transferred her to Tewkesbury State Hospital, which is obviously state-run, and she'll be held there for the next 6 months under Section 18, a Massachusetts law concerning the hospitalisation of inmates with mental illness, until the 10th of November. The judge decided she still needs more help with her mental illness and is considered to possibly be a danger to herself. Lindsay is due back to court for a case status hearing on July the 25th. So, like I said at the beginning, this case has divided the nation. Was Lindsay suffering from PPP, or did she really plan this? Let's discuss postpartum psychosis in more detail before we move on to some of the evidence that was found. To be clear, I haven't had children, and so I haven't gone through either postpartum depression or psychosis. This is all from information that I've researched. PPP is a very complex mental illness, and obviously I'm not a doctor and I'm not educated in this subject either. But I want Roger and you guys to know the facts of this mental illness so we can then relate it back to the case. So just forgive me if I'm not 100% accurate with what I'm saying. It varies from person to person. It's super complex. So I'm kind of doing like blanket facts. If that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Sort of vague facts.
Like they're facts.
Yeah.
It's just they're not like going to super detail because it differs for everyone.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Postpartum psychosis is a condition that affects a person's reality. 1 in 7 women suffer from postpartum depression. It's very common, yet postpartum psychosis is only 1 in every 1,000 women, so it is considered rare. PPD has still got a massive stigma around it, even though it is so common. Not enough people talk about it. Women feel ashamed they went through it, and even less people talk about the severe dangers of psychosis. Some of the main symptoms of postpartum psychosis are feeling manic, low mood, anxiety, rapid changes of mood, severe confusion, being restless, agitated, insomnia, and racing thoughts. But the more serious symptoms are paranoia, losing your inhibitions, feeling as if you're in a dream world, delusions, and hallucinations. So symptoms can vary from person to person, like I said, and they can change rapidly from hour to hour and from one day to the next. But they can make it difficult to look after yourself and your baby when you're going through it, obviously.
Yeah.
During a postpartum psychosis episode, it's very rare for you to be aware that you have the symptoms of this mental health condition. But your family or friends, people around you, will usually know that something is wrong. It is apparent that something's not right.
Yeah.
Because they don't recognise their mental health condition, they may misunderstand attempts to help them as a sign that someone is trying to hurt them. So it is vital for friends and family to proceed with caution and to seek professional help. There is a much higher risk of the mother harming themselves and or their children when they have the psychosis. According to the Royal College of Psychiatrists, symptoms often begin within the first few days of giving birth, usually at least within 2 weeks. Less commonly, this illness can start later by several weeks after birth. So to clarify, Lindsay's anxieties that she first started feeling, they became clear 4 months after giving birth.
Okay. So a bit against the grain of what you just said.
So, yeah. If someone is exhibiting symptoms of psychosis, it is considered a medical emergency and should be seen by a doctor immediately, as women usually need to be treated within a hospital environment. According to Cleveland Clinic, there are 3 subtypes of PPP: depressive, manic, and atypical or mixed. The depressive subtype is the most common and also the most dangerous. Quote, research shows that depressive symptoms and psychosis are almost always a factor in cases that involve self-harm or harm to a child, especially hallucinations or delusions that command a person to harm their child or themselves. The rate of harm to a child is about 4.5%, and the rate of suicide is about 5%. Symptoms include anxiety, delusions, hallucinations, loss of enjoyment of things they normally enjoy, feelings of guilt, thoughts of self-harm, suicide and or harming their child. I believe if Lindsay is proven to have psychosis, it would be this one, as the other 2 subtype symptoms don't add up with how Lindsay has been described. I'll still go into them. Manic subtype is described as talking more or faster than usual, needing less sleep, delusion of grandeur, aggressive, and atypical symptoms are disorientated, disorganized speech or behavior, hallucinations, and catatonia. Psychosis is treatable with a few methods that may work. However, because it is a rare condition that hasn't been researched thoroughly, means there is limited information as to how to treat this condition effectively. Treatment can be medication and or electroconvulsive therapy, which has proven to be very effective.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Which I didn't think we still did, but we do. But it's probably not as awful as it was back in the day.
No, well, hopefully not.
But it is still getting your brain zapped, which is pretty scary. But apparently it works.
If it works. Hey.
With treatment, people can recover within a few weeks. Without treatment, PPP can last for weeks or even months. The condition becomes more severe and dangerous the longer it goes untreated. So that's a kind of general thing of psychosis there.
Okay. Interesting.
It's such a scary mental illness. Like I watched some videos on like women that have gone through it and stuff like that, and it's just so scary because like this was Lindsay's 3rd kid. I think you're more likely to have it with your first.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't know why. If you've had it in your family, you're more likely to get it. If you have it, you're also then more likely to develop bipolar because it's very similar.
Right.
But not necessarily like the hallucinations and stuff. But it can get that bad, bipolar.
Yeah.
But it's just so terrible. So in relation to Lindsay and what we know so far, it appears she did have a couple of the symptoms of psychosis. She had the anxiety, the insomnia, the low mood, which is when she initially received the help 4 months after giving birth. Mm-hmm. I couldn't find anywhere where symptoms start that long after giving birth.
Well, I question whether the symptoms actually started sooner. She just didn't necessarily say anything.
But
I mean, how common is it that people keep themselves to themselves when they're...
Yeah, but I think with psychosis, it's harder to hide.
Flip of a switch sort of thing, yeah.
I think as well as, if you're hallucinating...
Well, yeah, right.
And you're not in the same reality as your partner...
No, that would be...
I think it would be quite obvious.
Relatively clear, yeah.
Yeah.
You'd think.
And she'd seen family, she'd seen friends.
Yeah, sure.
Recently. I mean, she was with friends the night before.
Yeah.
But it can change hour. This is the whole point. It changes hour to hour.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite grasp, length of time you could be in these, states of mind. Like, it's probably different for everyone.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's just so complicated. But yeah, so I'm not sure. She was obviously showing symptoms, but I did read in my research, once you kind of start to show symptoms of psychosis, it rapidly gets worse.
Right.
It's not like a gradual, a
No.
few months later it gets a bit worse. It's not. It's kind of like it gets bad quick.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, everywhere that I read, it said kind of days after birth and rarely weeks after giving birth. So that's a bit of a discrepancy there, I think. Her serious decline happened in December, where she admitted to her husband about the suicidal thoughts and the harm of the children. That's 7 months after giving birth. And in my research, it's where I said, if left untreated, over time it gets worse.
I mean, I suppose one thing to consider is that it is a fairly under-researched, illness, right?
Yeah, so it could be more diverse and stuff.
Yeah, which it probably is. I mean, most things are often a lot more complex than they first appear.
That's it, exactly. Finally, all the articles noted how people with postpartum psychosis rarely are aware of their medical condition. And if confronted with concern of their condition, they could misconstrue that as a threat. So with Lindsay saying coherently to her husband Patrick on the phone that she had a moment of psychosis, would she have really been aware of this? Or was she told this by the psychologist, Dr. Paul Ziesel? And if she was told by the doctor, would she have believed him?
Okay.
Because if they are paranoid and kind of seeing it as a threat, I don't know, would she have believed them? But I don't know. I'm just playing kind of devil's advocate here because I'm just not sure.
Sure.
I'm just trying to throw out all the possibilities. But
I mean, if an authority, if an authority tells you that might have been the case, sort of thing, you might, and arguably,
if you're paranoid,
true, but arguably,
I don't think that matters.
You'd want to sort of maybe protect your own mental health at that point and say, actually, this horrific thing that I've done, it must have happened under a moment of psychosis, unless she's playing it, right?
Yeah, because if you're not in a moment of psychosis, are you lucid? Are you normal?
If you're
not in a moment of psychosis, are you then just normal?
Well,
I don't know.
Well, I assume. Well, no, you
can't.
Not
you
wouldn't
just
be
ebb and flow into it.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't imagine you'd be your full self because you're still suffering from
mental illness.
From a mental illness, but it probably is like, two sides of a coin type thing. One for an hour you might be psychotic sort of thing, and the next hour you'll be maybe relatively calm. I don't know.
No.
Don't know.
And that's why this is going to be so difficult to go to trial with.
Yeah.
Another point I wanted to briefly discuss is the medication she was on. I do have some knowledge of these medications as I worked in a pharmacy for a few years. And this does seem like a lot to go through in only 4 months. But obviously the UK and America use medication very differently. Here we would suggest staying on a medication for a few months, depending on the severity of your side effects. As these are mental health medications, they come with a lot of side effects, but they can subside or level out after a few weeks or months being on them. But in 4 months, she had tried all of these meds. I think it's a total of 13 medications, which just seems like a lot. The defence is suggesting that the side effects of some of the medications may have contributed to the murder of her children, or, contributed to her mental state, which then led to the murder of her children. So I've researched all the medications she was on, as I'm not sure which ones she was taking at the time of the murders, just to see what the side effects are specifically to this case. So I've only made notes of the side effects that are relevant, as they all have many side effects, but they're not all relevant. So I'm not going to list them all, but here we go. We'll put it up on the screen because it's a lot of words. But you will notice some common, similarities. Fluoxetine, common side effects, anxiety. Uncommon, suicidal thoughts, hallucinations, abnormal behaviour. Quetiapine, common, suicidal behaviours. Crazy, that's a common one. Zolpidem, less common. Irritable, loss of interest, trouble sleeping. Rare, anxiety, rapidly changing moods, suicidal thoughts, delusions, paranoia. Diazepam, lorazepam and clonazepam. Common, anxiety and depression. Uncommon, hallucinations. Rare, aggression, delusions. Very rare, psychosis. Lamotrigine, less common, anxiety and depression. Mirtazapine, less common, mood changes, abnormal thinking, anxiety, feelings of not caring. Rare, anger and mood swings. Sertraline, less common or rare, aggressive and mood changes. Trazodone. So the next couple, they only have frequency not known side effects. So basically, there isn't enough reports on the side effects to kind of clarify whether they're common or like really rare. So I haven't really listed them because I didn't want to I couldn't judge what they were. And there was like 30 side effects. So I just didn't want to kind of throw them out there. So trazodone, hydroxyzine and amitriptyline, they were all under that section.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that they don't have side effects. Buspirone, rare, is mental depression and trouble with sleeping. So clearly we can see some common traits between them all: anxiety, depression, hallucinations, and some even have the suicidal behaviours. Just to clarify, just because these side effects are listed, even if they're listed as common, doesn't mean the person taking them will get that side effect. It's just more likely than others that, they will have it. But also, just because a side effect is rare doesn't mean that that's the one side effect that they will feel.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. You're saying some people might not experience any of these side effects.
Yeah.
Some people will. Some people yeah.
And just
some of them will be common and some of them will be rare.
Just because it's like the rare one doesn't mean like that could just be the one side effect that they get from all of it as well.
Yeah, right.
You just don't know. But obviously some are very rare. I don't have like stats and stuff.
No.
But yeah.
I do find it a bit funny that all of these pills are designed to treat, all of the things that they potentially could give you side effects for,
It's difficult because medication is so complicated, but and medications, they're for multiple things as well. Like, I think it's lamotrigine, that can be for seizures or something,
right,
and stuff like that. But it also can help mood stabilizing or something. It's so weird. They can be used for multiple things, not just depression or not just. It could be also, you're constipated or something. You can use it. Obviously, that's not true, but a completely opposite thing.
Yeah.
So it's just finding the right combination and the right amount and the right ones that work together. It's so complicated. But yeah, it does seem weird. But I did read somewhere that even with these side effects that, some are common, the doctor kind of outweighs the pros and the cons, and they would deem the pros outweigh the cons.
Yeah.
When prescribing it. Apparently. So we don't know what she was taking at the time of the murders, so we can't go into too much detail about this. But I just thought it was important to share the side effects of all the medications that she was on. I wonder if she was changing medications so often because she was feeling horrible side effects, which I imagine she probably was. Patrick did confide in his friend saying she was having terrible side effects and even withdrawing from the benzodiazepines, which I believe are like the diazepams, lorazepams, clonazepams, the PAMs.
The PAMs.
I literally just listed that afterwards. Symptoms of withdrawal from benzodiazepines are the same as the others. Anxiety, depression, sleep problems, delusions, paranoia, and hallucinations. So it's a whole cocktail of just mess, isn't it? So she's obviously got mental health problems. She's on all sorts of combinations of medications that have these side effects, and then she's also possibly withdrawing from medication that has these side effects. So it's just a whole cocktail of horrible.
Yeah. Well, her brain must be all over the place.
Yeah.
In terms of chemically, all over the place. From jumping on one prescription to the next.
Yeah. They said the doctors were weaning her off and stuff, but it was only 4 months.
Yeah,
but then also she wasn't taking them for that long. She wouldn't need that long to wean off of them.
No, that's true. That's a fair
But some
point.
of them are really addictive, like the benzodiazepines. They're very, very addictive.
Yeah.
If benzodiazepines are suddenly stopped, this can cause serious withdrawal symptoms such as confusion and psychosis. So we knew she was going through a withdrawal, so this could have contributed negatively to her mental state as well. Once we hear her side of the story and find out what meds she was actually on, that would be really valuable information to have. Okay, so let's go over the limited evidence that we have been told in the media. Lindsay kept meticulous notes of her medication and a diary of how she was feeling. She made a note on her phone in October 2022, which read, "I think I sort of resent my other children because they prevent me from treating Cal like my first baby. And I know that's not fair to them. I know that. I was feeling so depressed last evening when Cora and Dawson came home from school. I know it runs off on them. So we had a pretty rough evening. I want to feel love and connection with all my kids." So she's clearly kind of showing some signs of resentment there with her older kids as early as October. So she'd already kind of said about her feelings of anxiety in end of September time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that message is just a bit... I don't know what the right word is.
Well, I don't know.
It's just a bit, I don't know, a bit chilling, I
It's
think.
a bit sort of warning in a way.
Yeah.
But how are you? I mean, at this point, they're just feelings, right?
Yeah.
In a sense.
Patrick was seriously concerned about Lindsay and the medication she was on. He speaks to Lindsay's doctor in January, before the murders and after she was discharged from the hospital. He wanted help with managing her medications. He begged for help and described the medication as turning her into a zombie, and that the medications prescribed were over the top. But then a week later, she murders her own children, and he didn't receive any help. January the 23rd, the day before the murders, she makes a note on her phone saying that she has a touch of postpartum anxiety about returning to work. On the day of the murders, when Lindsay called CVS in regards to the medication Patrick ends up buying later that day, the manager she spoke to tells investigators that Lindsay did not slur her words or sound impaired during the phone call.
Right.
So I'm assuming she sounded lucid.
Yeah.
When Lindsay called Patrick from Dr. Ziesel's phone and said how she had a moment of psychosis and was hearing voices, he reveals to investigators that she had never mentioned hearing voices before or used the word psychosis with him before. And from what we have heard earlier, she was always pretty open about her feelings and would often tell her husband what was going on, obviously, when she opened up about suicidal thoughts, etc. So he seemed surprised that he had never been told these things before.
Yeah.
Newly unsealed court documents were revealed in an arraignment on the 26th of October 2023, so very recently. The documents include search warrants and affidavits that include a list of multiple items that were taken into evidence from the house, such as 3 cameras, a baby monitor, a journal, 4 laptops, a silver knife, and 4 medication bottles. Investigators also took blood and urine samples along with swabs from under Lindsay's fingernails. The affidavit states, quote, "Investigators are also aware that Ms. Clancy used her cellular telephone and her journal to document her mental state and her feelings about her children, in addition to keeping track of her medications and researching ways to kill," which means that it is reasonable to conclude that Miss Clancy would have used all formats and tools available to her, including a tablet. I don't know what that end bit means, but yes, that's right. She searched ways to kill.
Okay. Kind of changes things, doesn't it?
However, yeah, investigators did not go into detail of this discovery, on Lindsay's phone or into any other searches that were on there when they found this. So again, we don't have the context of how she was searching ways to kill. There's no context there, but obviously that's not a normal thing to search.
No, don't know.
And we don't know when she searched that as well.
Right.
So we haven't got a lot of information there, but obviously that is a very dramatic thing to release as information.
Yeah.
Allegedly, 4 days before the murder, Lindsay searched on her phone, "Can you treat a sociopath?" So this has played into the prosecution's argument of how Lindsay had planned this all along and is faking the psychosis. Jennifer Sprague expresses how she believes the suicide attempt was fake. The cuts were superficial as they had already stopped bleeding by the time Patrick came home. And she lowered herself out of the window and dropped down. I don't think she took into account the fact that the ground was frozen, which is why she got so fucked up from it, and obviously now is a paraplegic. Obviously, I don't know. So what is being suggested is that Lindsay made the cuts to herself strategically, climbed out the window,
dangled up from the window
and dangled herself down. from the window ledge, then dropped. But because it was icy, she then really hurt herself.
Well, I guess you have to wonder whether she was going to run away.
So I don't know where Lindsay's kind of got that information from of the lowering herself out of the window and...
Yeah, where Lindsay's got that information.
No. Sorry, where Jennifer Sprague. I don't know where she's got that from. That hasn't been released as like, you know, any evidence to show that.
Okay.
But that can easily be proved. You know, if there's fingerprints on the windowsill that are in obviously that way, that can be easily proved. Obviously, if there was any. But the height of the window is around 20 foot, and after a quick Google, anything above 10 foot can cause spine injuries. I mean, obviously, if there was snow, so there would have been ice. You know, we don't know. So I'm not sure where she got that information from, but she is very much on the, you know, she's faking it argument. Yeah. So that is all of the evidence that has been released so far. The next hearing she has is on December 12th, I believe. Oh, and I read something about the court system in Massachusetts, which I found interesting. So in court in Massachusetts, if there is a serious mental health issue and a claim of lack of criminal responsibility is raised, it's the prosecution that has to prove that she was sane beyond a reasonable doubt. Whereas normally it's the other way around. The defence normally has to prove the innocence of the defendant.
Yeah, right.
So from that, I think the prosecution are going to have a very difficult time proving that, if I'm honest, kind of with her history and her medication. Yeah. But if there's these searches, ways to kill, can you treat a sociopath?
True, yeah.
That's a but then we don't have the context.
No, we don't. And I think do you have to consider that... if someone in their not right mind, would they search those things? Do you have to be lucid to look on your phone and search something? Right?
I just feel like that's like a very rational way of doing something, like
searching stuff.
Yeah. I just think that's very whereas when you're in a psychosis, you're not in the same reality as other people.
No, but that doesn't mean that the things that exist within the norm, like phones and tablets and whatever, aren't like real in this other reality.
No, I know that. I just think I don't know. I just think that's a very logical thing to do.
Yeah, sure. Well, I get that, but I
even though it's stupid because they'll look at your phone.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, exactly. But I mean. I know
what you're saying, though.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy to think that someone in a moment of psychosis might, if they're having those kind of thoughts, might search for something like that. Like, do you have to be?
It just seems too logical to me to do that.
Well, I get what you're saying
like,
too,
kind of
but
if you're in a psychosis state and you know you're paranoid, you think someone's after you. And you're hallucinating. Yeah. You know, you might be terrified of, you know, an armchair that you think is going to attack you or something. Yeah. And then so someone comes into the room and you just attack them.
Yeah, okay.
I just don't think you would logically be like, okay, I'm scared of the armchair. Like, what do I do? No. You know what I mean? It just seems too logical to search something on the phone.
But like you say...
It just doesn't make sense in my brain, but it's fine.
But like you say, we don't have the context of it.
No, we don't at all.
You know, that's part of the trouble.
And the dates and times of when these were searched. So I'm going to be very intrigued as to when that is revealed. So as the story has broken, multiple women and doctors have come forward in defence of Lindsay and her possible psychosis condition. Around 20 letters were sent to Lindsay's defence lawyer, Kevin, on their opinion, their personal opinion and also their professional opinion of the defendant and the condition. So Juliet Hollander, a nurse who worked with Lindsay for 8 years, wrote, "I can attest to Lindsay's true character and know that whatever happened that day was not the real Lindsay, whom we all love and cherish." And in response to what Lindsay is accused of, she wrote, "They were unthinkable acts, so far out of touch to what the truly lovable mother I knew would have committed." Another fellow nurse wrote, "I do not know a better mother than Lindsay Clancy. She lived and breathed for her children. I rarely heard her talk about anything else but them." So you got to remember, obviously, she worked in a labour ward for years.
Yeah,
And as far as we know,
surrounded by babies.
Yeah, she's never had any problems whilst working there, with babies or, even with her mental health. She's not had problems that we're aware of. A childhood friend from first grade, Michelle DeConto, said, "When Cora was born, her mummy nursing skills took over and she would check Cora's vitals at home just to make sure she was okay. She had a special bond with all her children and was so proud to be a mum." So there were so many nice words written about Lindsay from past patients as well, calling her a calming presence and the best nurse I've ever had. And just how devastated everyone is by this news. In regards to Patrick, the husband, a GoFundMe was created for him in which over $1 million has been raised to help him with the funeral funding and just to help him get through the coming difficult months. It was, I know, amazing. It was made clear that none of the GoFundMe money is going towards Lindsay's defence. That is being funded by Lindsay's parents, but will very soon run out. He stayed silent and out of the media for the first few days of the incident, of course. But he did release a statement on Saturday the 28th of January. I won't read the full thing as it is quite long, but I will read some of it because it's very sweet and also very, very sad. So here we go. "A lot of people have said they can't imagine, and they're right. There's absolutely nothing that can prepare you. The shock and pain is excruciating and relentless. I'm constantly reminded of them, and with the little sleep I get, I dream about them on repeat. Any parent knows it's impossible to understand how much you will love your kids until you have them. The same goes for understanding the devastation of losing them. Cora, Dawson and Callan were the essence of my life, and I'm completely lost without them. My family was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I took so much pride in being Lindsay's husband and a dad to Cora, Dawson and Callan. I always reminded myself that each day with them was a new gift. Callan usually woke up first and would rest his head on my shoulder for a few minutes as he adjusted to the morning. Dawson typically sang or spoke his thoughts out loud for a while before we'd go get him. Cora was a big girl and would simply walk downstairs. I can still vividly picture her coming into the living room each morning with her hair in a mess, smile on her face. They gave me purpose and I never took it for granted. This is now a massive void where that purpose once was. Cora had an infectious laugh and was stunningly beautiful. She was the cautious one, but it was really because she was so caring. She used to say she wanted to be a doctor and a mama when she grew up, and she would practice by giving Callan checkups. She truly loved her brothers and us and said it often in her sweet voice. We did a lot of father-daughter activities together, like skiing and visiting San Francisco or just talking. I loved her, my firstborn, so much. Dawson had beautiful, bold brown eyes that beamed with friendship. He was naturally humorous and generous beyond the norm of a typical toddler, always willing to share his toys with others. For all the love he received, he always gave back more. His best quality was his pure kindness. He would hug me tighter than most adults, and every night he told me in consistent words at bedtime, without fail, "Good night, Dada, I love you." We had a special bond from day one. He was my buddy, my first boy, and truly a gift. Callan was our easygoing child. I always said it was because he was the third child. He had to adapt, and he did easily. He was born with hardly any fuss and was by far our best sleeper. He was just an incredibly happy and vibrant baby, constantly smiling. Our nickname for him was Happy Callan. The last moment we had together was our routine. I would come up from my office at the end of the day and swing him between my legs while he laughed and smiled. If I was ever having a bad day, Callan always knew how to heal me. Perhaps that's why he held on a little longer, to spare me whatever pain he could. I want to share some thoughts about Lindsay. Our marriage was wonderful and diametrically grew stronger as her condition rapidly worsened. I took as much pride in being her husband as I did in being a father, and felt persistently lucky to have her in my life. She loved being a nurse, but nothing matched her intense love for our kids and dedication to being a mother. It was all she ever wanted. Her passion taught me how to be a better father. I want to ask all of you that you find it deep within yourselves to forgive Lindsay, as I have. The real Lindsay was generously loving and caring towards everyone. Me, our kids, family, friends, and her patients. The very fibres of her soul are loving. All I wish for her now is that she can somehow find peace.
Okay.
So sad.
Very
But
sad.
I figured he can, say the words of his children better than I can.
Yeah.
So I just thought, I just feel so bad for the guy. Oh my God, I cannot imagine what he's going through. But that is all the information of the case today.
Okay.
So, what's your kind of finishing thoughts on that?
Well, it's horrendously tragic, and like you say, I mean, you've got to feel for the guy. It's his life's been turned upside down and inside out, hasn't it? In terms of like her though, I don't know. It's a difficult one, but I think with the sound of what her older friends said and what some of the doctors said, the period of time where this occurred, she was obviously not acting, within the realms of what people would consider her, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's relatively telling of definitely of a mental health problem for sure. Whether it's the psychosis or whatever, who knows at this stage. But yeah, that's sort of what I'd have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to believe that she did have some kind of like mental break, whether it was the psychosis. I don't think she necessarily fits in the box of psychosis, but definitely some kind of mental break there. I do think that, like you say, like what everyone's been saying about her, like her husband had, like obviously he was worried about her mental state, but he wasn't worried that she was actually going to actually do anything.
Yeah, right.
Like there wasn't that level of worry.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I hope that she hasn't just fooled everyone around her. I'm just kind of thinking now, the sociopath thing she searched, like, was that in a kind of...
well, it was how to treat, right? That's what
can
she
you
searched.
treat a sociopath? So I'm just thinking, I was just thinking now, has she come out of maybe a mental break or psychosis episode, and she's been described as being like a zombie, not feeling a lot of emotions. Kind of was she thinking like, oh God, am I a sociopath? Like, is this,
right.
Are these is this it? Like, do you know what I mean? Maybe she was thinking that. Maybe it's something as simple as that. She was like, oh my God, can you treat that? Cause
it's a very
I don't know.
final thing to search, if you know what I mean. It's like, it's a very binary.
Yeah.
You're looking for a binary answer, right? You want a yes or a no. And obviously it's probably not that. It's probably a complicated, confusing answer. But...
Well, you can't.
What?
You can have therapy.
Yeah, right. Oh, okay. Well, but you can treat it. It's, seemingly.
You can like maintain it.
Yeah, sure. But either way, it's an interesting search because I don't know if it necessarily says that much about her, but it's just.
No, I think it's just after the searching, like ways to kill.
Yeah.
And then it getting released that can you treat a sociopath? It's just like, that's it, she's been faking it.
Yeah,
she's
right.
a sociopath. You know, she's been planning this all along. I don't believe that. There would have been signs of her being a sociopath firstly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't...
For a long time.
I don't,
She would have the trait. You have traits of being a sociopath. You're not just... Yeah, you blink and you're a sociopath all of a sudden. Like,
I think the weight of the Google searches in this particular case isn't that...
we need more context.
Yeah, you need more context.
The ways to kill thing, we need more context on that one,
I don't,
because that's a weird one.
It is a weird one, absolutely. But
was there ants? Was it ways to kill ants? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like...
Was it just ways to kill? Is that what it...
It's just that she had been researching ways to kill. That's how it was described.
Right.
So very vague.
Could have been ants.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, okay, that sounds really bad. And then I really thought about it, and it's like, well, I've probably Googled some really bad, like things that sound really bad.
Yeah.
But they're completely innocent.
Yeah.
You know, it's so difficult to know. But yeah, I really want to know as well, just going back, you know, that she went to a hospital and they said she had no signs of postpartum depression at all. And that was in December or November. Well, so I'd like to know, I'd like for them to get interviewed and to see like their opinion on things. Because obviously we haven't got that. We haven't got her medical history.
No.
Yet.
I mean, if they were looking for something, they might not have been looking for the right thing, right?
Well, I think
but obviously these things always... They do, yeah, like it's almost a spectrum, right? Some of these things will fit into that and some of those things will fit into that. And, you know, all right, she might not have had postpartum depression, but she might have had depression, or she might have had psychosis, or she might have had something else. Yeah, don't know.
Yeah, because I don't think you have to have postpartum depression to then get psychosis. I think you can just... get psychosis.
Like develop it, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be really interesting just to hear like what they have to say, and also the psychiatrist that prescribed her a buttload of meds, like what they've got to say for themselves as well. Like what was their medical thinking and stuff like that.
To do that, yeah. I mean, I don't know if... it always seems to me that in America they're pretty keen to get people on drugs.
Yeah, that's how they solve their problems. They just throw drugs at people.
I mean, if any Americans are watching, you tell us if we're wrong, but that's what it looks like. All right, yeah, but that's what it looks like sometimes from the outside in. Here, I do think there's a little bit of it, but I don't think it's anywhere near as much.
It's more managed here for sure.
Yeah. And maybe that's because it's a free healthcare system. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're having to pay for it all, aren't they?
Well, it's private companies, isn't it? They're all looking to make a buck. Whereas here, it's kind of like something it costs X amount. It doesn't cost anything for the people, or if it does, it costs the same for everyone, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, so there is still some kind of weird situations that aren't quite adding up. And considering you can kind of be fine from 1 minute and then a kind of psychosis state possibly the next, could she have experienced that? You know, he was fine when he left, and then, you know, and then something triggered her. I don't know if it's like a triggering thing or like a switch, or, you know, and then the voices she said she heard.
Yeah. Well, I imagine when you're on your own, you're more likely to experience certain elements of your depression or psychosis, right? If you're on your own, you might be more likely to hear voices because there isn't anything filling
there's
that
children
space. Well,
making noise
maybe, yeah, true, but
we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
I suppose it's all just suspicious timing as well, isn't it? Like her being fine, then him leaving, and then her possibly going into the psychosis, and then kind of like waiting for him to leave. And then she does what she does.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's all just like timed very nicely.
Yeah,
for
I suppose.
For her to just go into this psychosis to then do this act.
Yeah.
As well. It's just, you know. But like I said, I don't know if it's like a triggering thing. I don't know how that works.
No.
So it could be because like the voices said like, this could be your last chance.
Yeah.
So was it that she saw him leave,
Right. No.
which then triggered the voice to go, this is it.
Yeah.
This is your time. I don't know how it works, but
Possibly.
we'll find out more and more as we go, because she is getting better and assessed. She's getting help. She will hopefully stand trial. I mean, she will, not guilty. They won't hold trial until she is able to stand trial. But obviously there's another hearing on the 10th of December, so no doubt we'll get more information then on the case. So I'll be keeping my beady eye on that, and we'll obviously do another case. Another. What is it?
Video?
What do we do? Video on. I forgot the word video. We'll obviously be doing another video on any updates when they come out. But all I know is that this was just probably the most horrific case we've covered yet, I would say. Just those sweet little children just did not deserve to die in this horrible, slow way by the person that they loved the most in the world. You know, and just thinking of their last minutes and just what they were thinking is just so heartbreaking. And I just hope Patrick has the support network around him just to get through the fact that he's lost his whole family.
Yeah.
And I just wish him all the best, and that's all I can say really. Have you got anything to add?
No, I don't think so.
No.
It's a very tragic story.
Yeah.
Very tragic thing. And yeah, I mean, I wish the best for him. And all the sort of medical help for her in some respects that she might require. But at the same time, she's
getting it. She's
getting
it. So.
Yeah, of course, no. But no matter how you look at it, someone's committed something atrocious at the end of the day. And there's that, they've got the person. But it's
now just the finding the middle part, isn't it, of the story, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just figuring that all out. So so we'll see how that continues, and we'll end it there then. Okay. Well, thanks for listening. Hope you've at least learned something from this horrible episode. And just remember to like and subscribe, and give us your what you think in the comments, your opinion of it all, because like we said throughout, it's so confusing and complicated. If you can give us any insight or whatever, just let us know. That'd be great. Okay, bye guys.